Join our community of learners today. Let's navigate through Business Central together and ace that MB-820 exam. Subscribe now. Just open up YouTube and in the search type Business Central Musings. And here it is. This is my channel. All you have to do is click subscribe. Hello everyone. You reached Business Central Musings, a YouTube channel dedicated to Business Central and programming in AL language. Today's video will cover an introduction to reports in Business Central. Like any other ERP or even not necessarily ERP but any software system, Business Central comes with an object dedicated to gathering data and displaying data in various formats. That object is called report. When there is a request to display specific information related to entities in Business Central, a developer will start writing a report object in AL language, and the report objects consist of two main pieces: the data items, and the second one is the layout. Is what you would see, for example, if you're coming from a system that is not Business Central. Imagine a store procedure written in SQL that outputs the content that comes from different tables, or a query, a SQL query. That data provided by a SQL query is in a tabular format, rows and columns. For AL reports, the data items is something similar to a query, a SQL query. With a SQL query and with data items section of a report object in Business Central, you can merge, you can join the data from different tables. And we will see how that looks like when we write an AL report. You can arrange the elements of the data items in various formats. You can have an output as a Word document, you can have an Excel document, or you can even have a PDF that basically relies on RDLC format. To create the RDL file, which is basically the layout of an AL report, you would need a called report builder. To write the query or the equivalent of a query for a report, you would need AL. You need to write code in AL language. In the picture here, we see what are the main components of a report object in AL when we write it in AL. The report has properties, and we're going to see a lot of the properties in the next minutes. The report has triggers, and it has data items. The report can contain labels and a request page, and it can have different layouts. The data items have also properties. Each data item can have triggers and columns. Columns in their turn can have properties. Labels can also have properties. Request page can have properties, it can have triggers, and it can have different controls. Layouts are of three types: RDLC, Word, and Excel. Let's have a look next at one report. The way to start with a new report is using the snippet T report. And as you can see, the snippet was executed, and we've got here a scaffolding of the report. The report has properties, it has a section for the dataset, and inside each section of the dataset we have data items, and inside each data item we have columns. We can have many data items that are joined. The other section here is the request page, is what is displayed if our report has a request page. and the request page has also properties and has a layout, and inside the layout we can have areas, and inside the area we can have groups, and inside the groups we can have various controls. Actions, I haven't seen it that much used on the reports. We have also a rendering section where we render the data set created with this section into a specific layout, like an Excel layout, or it could be Word layout, or it could be RDLC. We can tell the report to use or not use a request page with this property use request page. So that's the snippet is pretty good at just scaffolding the main components of a report. Let's close this, maybe delete it, and let's look now at one report that I prepared that has pretty much everything a report should include. And we see here the ID of the report, and we see also the name of the report. And then what we have in this section, up to the data set, we have properties for the report. We can have usage category, and the possible values for the usage category are the ones displayed on the next row here: administration, documents, history, lists, none, reports and analysis, or tasks. I usually go with reports and analysis, just like I have it here. Application area, it's depending, you know, on what area, if your report is about. If you're creating a report based on let's say reservations, then maybe you want to use an area specific to reservation, like item tracking. Default rendering layout is the name of a layout. The layouts are defined here in the rendering section, and here I have a layout name, which will be or you can copy it in here for the default rendering layout. You can have many layouts, but only one is going to be the default one, so you can have specified here the layout. Access by permissions works with usage category. So if the usage category is none, then you won't be able to see the report. You can probably trigger the report with, you know, like an action on a page. So it doesn't need to be one of these other values except none. But if the usage category is reports and analysis, then the report will be you can trigger the report from the UI. And if you can trigger it, the next thing is how much power do you have, like do you have access to all these data items, and that's something that's given by the permission that the user that executes the report has. Additional search terms, we'll see here two properties for additional search terms. For example, you know, if the user is typing in the global search the word learn, then this report, my report, will come up on the result set for the search. Or if it types MB-820, or if it types the word teach, it's still going to lead to our report here, episode 14.1. Data access intent, and also you have an ML, just like caption ML. You can include keywords in various languages with additional search terms. ML allows scheduling. Sometimes when you run a report, on the request page you have a button for scheduling. If you want the users to be able to schedule reports and be executed asynchronously at a different time by a job queue, then maybe you need allow scheduling to be true. Data access intent is telling the executor of the report, which is the SQL server, what database to use. If we say data access intent is read-only, the server will use a copy of the database specifically used for pages or API pages or queries or reports, instead of using the live database. So SQL Server can use a copy of the database with data access intent read-only. Read-write is just the default value for data access intent, and tells us that we don't only read with this report, we also write data back to the database. So use cautiously this data access intent. Think about what your report does, and if it doesn't change the data, then use read-only. Default layout is one of those three layouts. Description, it has no meaning to users. It's not visible to users. It's just an internal description for the report. Excel layout multiple data sheets. This property here is for used when we create an Excel layout. And imagine, let's have a look at this report here, customer sales analysis. We have here a data set with 2 data items. If we say here Excel layout multiple data sheets is true, then instead of creating one data sheet in the Excel file, the system will create one sheet for each data item. So in this particular case, we're going to have 2 sheets with data, one for customer and one for sales lines. Maximum document count is also used. It's used with when the layout is Word. And I don't know if you have experience with Word templates. My channel for Word templates, or in my website for Word templates, but they're really cool. If you want to generate multiple Word documents with one run of the report, then this property maximum document count is just saying, hey, if you're planning to create, if the value is 1,000 and the report just runs, you have maybe 20,000 customers, but if you want the report to stop after 1,000 documents, then you can specify here the document count that will be used as a threshold for how many Word documents will be created. In the printing, related to printing, we have 3 properties where we can use to specify. I think it's related to which tray of the printer to use for the default page, first page, and last page. PDF font embedding is a property that, when used, will include the font file within the PDF. So let's say if you're creating a PDF report and you're using maybe a micro encoding font, and if you want to include that micro encoding font with your PDF, then maybe you should set this field to true, this property to true, PDF font embedding. Permissions is just, it's what sort of permissions do you want, do you need for this report to be executed. You have to look at what is the report doing, Is it updating maybe data? And if it's updating, maybe you need modify permissions when you're executing the report. Processing only is true when it's true, then you should not worry about layouts because it's used for processing. For example, if you want to update maybe a field on a new field, for example, you're adding to the customer table a new field and you want to update that field, and yeah, you can populate the new field with the value that you need those records to have. And transaction, so processing only true means we're not creating any layout. Processing only false, which is default, you will create a layout, you will render the data on some layout, Excel, Word, or RDLC, and you need in this case to generate a layout or to take care of a layout. Transaction type is one of these 5 values. If you're only reading data, then maybe use these 3, one of these 3, or if you're modifying the data, maybe you need to look at those 2 values. Use request page. Well, we have a section request page. If you don't need to capture any data from the customer, then maybe use request page equal false. But if you do need to capture some input from the customer, from the user, then use request page equal true. Word merge data item. This is when inside the data set, if you want to merge the data not from the top level, but maybe somewhere at a different data item, then you can say what data item you want to use for merging. Word layout, Excel layout is just the layout that you want to use. Then in the data set, we've got data items, and the data items point to a table, Business Central tables. But what about columns? Columns are the fields that we want to select and display in the report, fields that are part of this data item. And the columns can be fields from the table, can be variables defined in the report, or it could be expressions, just like you see here in this case, where I'm displaying the day of the posting date field. Request page is a page that gets displayed before the report is executed, and one of the most important fields here is save values. If the save values is true, then next time, and you make certain selection of the fields on the request page, if you want to preserve those values, then you use save values true. The request page has a layout and a content, and it can have fields. Inside each content we can group the content in groups, and inside each group we can have fields. For example, this is something cool if you want to do some calculations, or you want to do some logic within a field. You can display the field as a link. We're going to see it soon when we execute the report, and basically it's acting like an action basically on the request page. On open page is a trigger for the request page. You see it is under the request page. So for example, if I want to initialize some values, for the fields that I have here on the request page, then I can do that on the on open page. There is also on init page, so we can let's see what other triggers we have. On after get current record, on after get record. Basically, pretty much all the triggers for pages. Then we have the rendering section, and here is where you define what layouts you want your report to have. Let's see what other. Yeah, we've got a few properties for the layout section of the rendering section. You can have obsolete. You can define a layout obsolete from a specific version on. You can have the layout multiple data sheets, the one that we had also on the report properties defined here. If you need to define multiple data sheets, and these are the global variables that the report is going to be using. So let's see how the report looks like when we run it. With Alt Q, we can start searching for our report. So I can search for episode and I can see it coming up here, or I can search for learn and it's coming up here, or I can search for MB and it's coming up here. So let's execute the report. This is the request page, and you can see I defined in our report page a field, and when it was not editable, but on the drill down action we defined an action, and we can execute all sorts of code here. We also have the schedule button, and if we take advantage of that, we can say when we want, at what time we want the report to run, and the system will create a job task to be executed and scheduled for that time. Let's also have a look at this report here. This is a report that will capture data from the customer table. We have data item table view. This is used for sorting using a specific key for the report for this data item, which in this case is just the primary key, is the number. We can also request filter fields, say which fields we want to appear when the request page will be rendered on the client. We can also have print only if detail true. If the next data item doesn't have data for the current customer, then this customer will not appear. And we have fields here that we want to include with customer: company name, customer number, customer name, phone number. Then for each customer we want to connect to its sales lines, and this is done with data item link property. And we can also filter this the sales lines using this field, using the property data item table view, and filtering by sales lines type equal item. Again, we've got here 4 fields as part of sales line data item. We also have here a trigger for this data item for sales lines. This trigger is looking at a variable show negative amounts and might skip over customers that have negative amounts on the sales line. We have two triggers here for, you see these two triggers are related to the data item customer, where we filter the data for the customers, which customers we're going to display with transactions between start date and date. The date filter is a flow filter field on the customer table. We also look at, we want to get with each customer the values of the sales and balance, because they might be in use, but that's not the case. Request page has three variables, one boolean and two dates. Start date and end dates are for displaying the data, and show negative amounts is a boolean field. The request page runs before it's rendered, it's running the onOpen page, where we initialize the two values. Then we use, in the rendering session, we have two layouts defined, one for RDLC and one for Excel, pointing to different files in this layout folder. This is the global variable section, and then we have two report triggers, on pre-report and on post-report. So that's the intro lesson for reports with AL language, reports for Business Central. I hope it helps. If it does, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.